Very warm welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to have a look at symptoms of a bad shock absorber. The shock absorber is a suspension component which is responsible for controlling the up-down motion of a vehicle's wheel. While springs are what mainly handles the energy absorbed from bumps in the road, without shock absorbers, your vehicle would continue to bounce on the spring for a time after hitting a bump. Shock absorbers absorb this unwanted spring motion, and this process is called dampening, and it's very critical unless you want to drive with a very little control. Shock absorbers have so many advantages. They keep your tires on the ground on bumpy roads so you can maintain control of the vehicle. They typically consist of a series of cylinders, a piston that travels through the innermost cylinder, and valves that measure the flow of fluid from one side of the piston to the other side as bumps in the road are encountered. Shocks are attached to the vehicle using bolts and rubber bushing, serving as a link between suspension components. Shocks and struts help stabilize your vehicle's movement, enhancing control when you turn, when you brake, when you accelerate, or when you encounter uneven road surface. Today's vehicles use shocks, struts, or a combination of these two. Shock absorber in your vehicles are designed to absorb the shock and jolt that come from riding on any surface that is not perfectly smooth. An important part of their job is keeping you comfortable, but they also have another important role, keeping the wheels on the ground at all times. Without functioning shocks, the tire may lose contact with the road, reducing your ability to control the vehicle. While shocks and struts wear out gradually, your vehicle may give you some signs that there is something wrong with its right control component. Worn shock absorbers and struts can have a detrimental effect on steering, stopping, and stability of your vehicle. If your vehicle is displaying any of the following symptoms, then it is time to look at the shock absorbers and strut assembly. 1. Longer stopping distance. Although longer stopping distance can be caused by various other vehicle problems, it is one of the most probable signs of bad shock absorber parts. One of the shock absorber functionings is to keep the tires on the ground. If the shocks are worn, if they are not functioning properly, they cannot help control the bouncing of the wheels. With minimum grip of the road, the tires do not respond to braking as they should. If you step on the brake pedal and your car takes a while to slow down and stop, then there is a possibility your shock absorbers might be faulty. If it is starting to take longer to brake, you may have a suspension problem. You may notice the change over time or suddenly, depending on what issue you are dealing with. Shocks are meant to keep the tires planted on the ground. If they aren't working, the tires may not stay on the ground, creating a bounce. When the tires are bouncing, it becomes much harder to stop when the brake pedal is depressed. If you don't start braking soon enough, you could end up in an accident. So, if your car takes longer than usual to stop, it may be a problem with the brakes, but it could also be a problem with the shock absorber. 2. Uneven tire wear. There are several potential causes of uneven tire wear, with one of the most common being alignment problems. However, uneven tire wear that you may notice from worn shock absorbers may look different. A bad shock absorber will cause the tire to bounce, hitting the road at different points. This bouncing motion may cause the kind of uneven patch you see in cupping. A worn shock is unable to keep the tire firmly on the road surface. This causes a slight bounce as the vehicle moves over the road surface. The part of the tire that is in contact with the road will wear, but the part of the tire that is not in contact with the road will not, causing uneven tire wear. Bad shocks and struts make the car to bounce, causing a reduction in road holding force. This bouncing can also cause accelerated tire wear, including cupping or scalping of the tires. 3. Front nose diving when braking. Bad shocks may also cause the front of your car to dive forward when you hit the brakes. If the front end of your vehicle dives towards the ground when braking, your shocks and strut need to be replaced or at least evaluated. Bad or worn out shock absorbers let fluid flow out through the seal. That causes the piston to move excessively in the cylinder. The slightest brake application by the driver allows extreme movement of the piston within the cylinder. Braking then causes the noise of the car to drive. That is because the weight of the car swings more than it would do if its movement was to be controlled by the shock absorbers. So, does it feel like the front of your vehicle dips quickly towards the ground when you hit the brakes? This is called nosedive and can indicate worn shock absorbers. It is dangerous because it can cause an increase in stopping distance. So, if the front end dives more than expected during hard braking, then it is time to look at the shock absorbers. 4. Rear squatting. If the rear end of the vehicle squats towards ground as you accelerate, it indicates a faulty shock absorber. Just as a shock absorber fail caused the nose of the vehicle to dive, the rear will also squat. If the rear squat when you hit the gas pedal, this shows loose shock absorbers, most probably due to leaking seal. Properly functioning shock absorbers and strut assembly stabilize the suspension movement when accelerating. When your shock and struts are going bad, the rear of your vehicle can squat excessively when you hit the gas pedal. 5. Swerving. Feeling like your vehicle is swaying or rolling when you make a turn is not only annoying, it is unsettling because you can feel like you aren't in control of your car. As shock absorbers wear out, they can lose their ability to control the rate of weight transfer when going around corners. This may also result in increased steering input to navigate turns. When the shock absorber is faulty, you may experience swerving if you step on the brake pedal while turning. The weight of your car will move in the opposite direction while you are turning. This will cause you to swerve, and it will take more work just to fix the turn towards the direction you want to go. Additionally, they could cause the vehicle to shift its weight in the opposite direction of a turn, making it swerve. 6. Excessive bouncing. Excessive bouncing when you hit a bump can be a signal that your shock absorbers aren't working effectively. Your vehicle should settle after hitting a bump and not continue to bounce. Worn shock absorbers and strut assembly are not able to effectively absorb road impacts and soften the bump. If you drive over a big bump, pothole, or a patch of rough road, and your vehicle continues to bounce, your car may need a shock or strut replacement. 7. Excessive steering wheel vibration. It is natural to experience a little vibration in your steering wheel when driving over a bumpy road. If you experience similar vibrations on smooth roads, your shocks, your struts, or steering stabilizers might be worn. Excessive steering wheel vibration should stop as soon as you are back on a normal road. If that does not happen, you are likely to be having faulty shock absorbers. Please note that a steering wheel that vibrates excessively when you drive over a bump of any kind could be a symptom of bad shock absorbers. Similarly, a steering wheel that vibrates constantly, even when you are on a smooth road, might mean trouble. If the faster you go, the more violent the vibration becomes. Pull over and call an expert to fix it. 8. Leaking shock absorber fluid. This is a sure sign of a broken shock absorber, precisely broken seal. The shock absorber's body has a seal to protect it from leaking. After a while, these seals will start to leak fluid along the side of the shock absorber's body until it falls on the ground. If the shock loses too much fluid, then it won't be able to function properly. Leaking shock absorber symptoms include oil on the side of the shock or even an oil patch on the ground. Leaking shocks are of no use. They will not control the oscillation of the chassis and suspension spring, as there will be less and less fluid in the chamber to work with. In addition to causing vehicle handling issues, the problem of leaks can lead to uncomfortable and tiring rides. Leaks are usually the earliest indication of problem. If the seal surrounding the shock shaft begins to leak, the fluid will run down the side of the shock towards the ground. Similarly, if you notice fluid leakage from the shock or strut assembly, you should check to see if the bodies are dented or otherwise physically damaged. 9. Strange noises. With good shocks in place, there should be no strange noise when you hit a bump. The shocks are meant to dampen the up and down movement, so you don't feel them or hear them. However, if the shocks or bushings start to wear out, you may hear more sounds because of the excessive vibration. It is common to hear rattling sound when shocks are bad. You can also hear some squeaking depending on what failed and how bad it is. 10. Swerving in the wind. Shock absorbers stabilize a vehicle. If they are old and worn, they cannot perform this function properly. The vehicle then sways uncontrollably, especially if the winds are strong. Your vehicle never feels completely stable on a highway and is constantly moving up and down. The movement may be slight, but you can notice it. As the shock absorbers wear, the suspension may not perform as well as it originally did. You may notice less control when steering, that the car wanders slightly from side to side, increasing bouncy. All of these symptoms are indicative of a serious problem. Should you encounter this problem and suspect shock absorber failure, it is advisable to replace the whole device. 11. Vibrations while driving. If the valve mechanisms or piston seal inside the shock absorber is wearing out, then it may not sit properly, allowing fluid to flow uncontrolled past the valves and piston seal, and thereby allowing every tiny bump in the road to cause an overaction that you can actually feel. It is normal to feel some vibration when you travel over uneven surfaces, even when everything is operating as it should. It is when the vibrations can always be felt that you have a problem. Faulty shocks are going to allow more vibration during your drive. You will feel the shaking, even if you are driving across even and calm roads. The riding comfort of your vehicle will be spoiled as a result. And finally, 12. Broken shock absorber bushing. At the end of either side of the shock absorbers, there are bushings. These bushings are exposed to harsh conditions of the atmosphere. After thousands of miles on the road, the bushings may start to crack and deteriorate. Worn bushings cannot cushion the shock mount from the suspension it attached to. If these rubber bushings crack or break, then tapping will be heard as the vehicle is riding over bumps. As a result, the car makes a lot of noise, especially when driving on rough conditions. If you notice any of the above 12 symptoms, then it is recommended that you thoroughly check the condition of each shock absorber and strut assembly and take remedial action as soon as possible. Well-maintained shocks and struts are critical to the overall safety and stability of your vehicle steering and suspension system. We highly recommend having shocks and struts serviced regularly and replaced well before there is an issue. If you observe any of these symptoms while you are in your vehicle or looking under the hood, then it is time to take care of the shock absorbers and strut assembly. Well, dear viewers, that is all we have for you in this video. If you enjoyed what has been presented, please smash the like button. If you are new here, do consider subscribing and turn on notifications so that you will be the first to get notified whenever we come up with another video. Until then, stay safe.